Hello everyone, and welcome to the third episode of Lair. The first one in English. We made it. Again, welcome everyone. First in English, so the show today is going to be more about introducing what the hell is going on here, basically. So before that, my name is Pedro Andrade. I'm a 2D supervisor living and working in London for the past 10 years. Time flies, but yeah, 10 years. It's hard to believe. So what the hell is going on here, right? So I've decided to create this show or something. I wanted to do something during this pandemic because, as we all know, in our community, VFX community, this is an industry that is being severely affected, like many others as well, of course, but this one is being severely affected by what's going on here at the moment in the world. This is affecting everyone, from people to companies to everything, basically. There's no news here, I know. But I wanted to do something to our community because, well, first of all, I've never done much, I'll be honest. And I thought this could be a good opportunity to do something that would, bring people together, hopefully, to talk about this problem. What are the issues that people are facing? Some people just want to blow off some steam. We've all been there. Sometimes I'm still there. We're all there still. So I've decided to create this show to support in that way our community. Learn or teach one thing or two if people are interested, and open the show to everyone that would like to participate. So we have a chat, a live chat that I would ask you to, if you want, to start typing and ask a few things or say hello to everyone. And because today is the first in English, it will be cool to know who you are, where are you watching this. That will be great. But this show, even though it's live, it's always going to be available afterwards for everyone who would like to rewatch it or watch it without being live. What else can I say for today? So as I said, today is more about explaining the structure of the program. The program, it's meant to be around 1 hour. Sometimes it goes a little bit over than that. I forgot to mention one thing, actually, which is this is the first in English. But as I said in the beginning, this is the third episode, and we had an episode that was the pilot episode, so episode 0. So this is actually the fourth episode, meaning it's the fourth week of this thing that is happening at the moment. And the first 3 episodes were in Portuguese, and they were aimed more directly to my community, my country. I'm from Portugal, and also to our Brazilian brothers and sisters that speak the same language. And there are other places in the world that speak Portuguese, many, more than what people might realize. But those are the 2 main countries that speak our language. And so we had 3 episodes like that, and today is the first one in English. So from now on it's going to be always in English, but I wanted to do something a bit more specific for our small community spread around the world. So now let's talk about this structure. I already spoke a bit about what's gonna happen here, but so we're gonna have like three parts of the show. The first one is going to be an intro, in which I'm going to talk about the week in terms of news, especially regarding the pandemic, because this is actually the subject of the day, like of every day, basically. As we all know, the news come like every day as well. So there are things that can potentially change definitely every week, and most likely every day as well. So we're going to talk about that a bit. Also, share some news about different things, of course, and share cool things that probably I've come across during the week or previously as well. So actually, regarding that was, for those of you that subscribe a newsletter from, what's his name, Josh Parks, I believe that's his name. There's two main newsletters that I subscribe. This Josh Parks, I believe that's his name. I'm sorry if it's not exactly like I'm saying. It's one of them, and the other one is Ben something. I'm sorry Ben, if you ever watch this. McEwen, I believe, something like that. Sorry once again. But in this last one, even though I don't remember his name exactly, it's one of my favorite ones. You know, of course, I like Josh's as well. But if you don't subscribe to this newsletter, I think you should, because there's all these cool things about this, and there's a lot of things that you can learn, definitely. And this past issue on Josh's newsletter, he shared something that was pretty cool, which is basically a tool. It's a software that you can download for free that allows you to do random patterns. And it's very, very nice. You can do, especially for those of you that are interested in doing UIs and stuff like that, very interesting. And I've played with it just like 2 seconds, I'll be honest, because I didn't have more time to explore. But it's something that I want to do. During this next week for sure. It seems pretty cool, and he did something that looks really cool as well, with something that apparently it seemed like really complicated, but it turns out it's very simple. So that will be the intro, and I've just mentioned something actually that I would like to share with you, and I just did. So that's the first part of the show. The second part of the show, it's going to be something that I call Tech Corner, in which I share you know, tips and tricks, for lack of a better word. It's something that it's a word that I don't like, or a term that I don't like that much, to be honest. But you know, it's how people call it. So that's gonna happen as well, and that's gonna be around 15 minutes after the first part of the show, and it will last. It's meant to last between 10 and 15 minutes. I'll be honest, on the past ones I've gone a little bit overboard in terms of that timing, because I was doing that live, and I want to do something live if people want, like if they have like you know, doubts, or if they would like me to talk about more specific things. Please, of course, we're gonna open the chat in just a while, but if you have questions, please put them on the chat, and as soon as I can, I'll go there and check them. But that will be the Tech Corner, and this week, also because it's the first one in English, we're gonna have some news regarding the Tech Corner. And well, first of all, Tech Corner is a new name. I didn't have a name before, so this is like the baptism of this section. And today it's pre-recorded, and the reason why it's pre-recorded, and it's something that probably I'm going to do that from now on, it's because it's easier for me to keep the pace of the show to what I want it to be, basically. So like I said, this should be around 1 hour, and this is my way of doing that, you know, a bit easier to follow that hour. And after that, we're gonna have a live guest. It's gonna be always a different guest. It's gonna be always a surprise guest, and that's on purpose, because I want, I think the beauty of something like this, it's for people to participate live, rather than you know, than just watch it after. And also the fact that I have a live guest, it's also an opportunity for everyone that would like to ask some things either to me or to the guest. It's an option as well, and otherwise it wouldn't be possible, not in the same way at least. So I think that will be a cool thing. So let's open the chat a bit to see who's here. And all right, we have some new people. Welcome everyone again. Okay, there's a guy here, by the way, that is what McEwen, exactly. Thank you, Carlos. And that's exactly the guy that I was about to talk about, because this guy is talking and watching this show, even though where he's seated, it's 2 in the morning. So I mean, thank you very much, but I don't think you you're normal. But thank you. I'm just joking around, of course. But thank you for coming once again, Carlos, and hope you enjoyed this one too. So let's go now to the Tech Corner. As I said, today it's a pre-recorded Tech Corner. Hope you enjoy it, and we're gonna talk about it afterwards. All right, bye bye. One of the things that sometimes you have to do is to, out of a bunch of pictures that the client sends us, we need to make sense of all of them in order to create something that we call the environmental map. So an environmental map is basically a texture that we can then map to a sphere that hopefully is going to be used in a bunch of shots. And it's going to be just one texture that will serve the purpose of using, say for example, these images as a background with multiple cameras, and we're just going to do this once. So how can we do that? That's what we're going to see, and the final aspect of that map is going to be something like this. So how can we, out of all these pictures, do something that can be then textured back to a sphere that will take into consideration the UVs of that sphere, so we don't have any stretching, and the image will behave basically the same as the actual images that were taken, but we have an entire coverage of that environment. This is more a test that either supervisors or leads do, but anyone can benefit on using or how to do these kind of things, because there will be a time in which probably you're going to be requested to do so. So here I have a bunch of pictures, and all of them, I labeled them, everything that is at the bottom, at the center, and at the top of this environment. And basically all of them are with different exposures and all that stuff. That was on purpose, because this will highlight a bunch of problems that hopefully we're gonna talk about them. And as you can see, this was shot on what it seems to be a tripod, and basically it's there's a certain angle in which this was taken from, starting in one end and finishing at the other. So first thing to do, of course, we need to undistort these images, because we're going to play with the 3D space. I have the undistort here, and because we're also going to use the 3D space, we need to make sure that all these pictures will have a full alpha, otherwise we're going to have transparencies, and you'll see why. So let's put this in with the full alpha, like that, and then I'm going to copy all of these to all the other ones. Okay, so now I have everything. One thing that also helps, apart from labeling like this, is to pick one that will be your center. So now I'm gonna pick that reference, and I'm gonna do one thing, which is normally the camera in the Wrangler sheets, normally the camera is there, but sometimes it's not. And we can always go and look at the view, at the metadata with the view metadata node to see what kind of information do we have here. So let's see and call for focal length, and yes, we have focal length, and maybe aperture of 22. Not too sure if this value is actually correct, so I'm gonna choose to ignore this value, because the aperture is whatever film back of your camera is, and I know that for a fact that this number is wrong, so we're just gonna follow the focal length, and we know it's 34. So now what we're going to do is we're going to open the camera in Nuke, and we're going to put the 34 there on the focal length, right? And now the first goal and main one to start with is to put this image in a card in such a way that once we have this in the 3D space, after the scanline render with this camera, the image that we're going to have, it's going to be exactly this one. Okay, so we're going to open a new card. No special settings at all, it's just a blank card, and the first thing that we want to do is to link some of the values between the camera and the card. So there's a relationship always between them. So what we're going to do is we're going to link the focal length to the lens in focal here on the card. So we'll link it like that, and then we're going to link the aperture too. But I chose to ignore the aperture because I thought that value was not realistic. Maybe it is, but in terms of film bank, if you choose a camera tracker here, and if you know the brand, the actual model of the camera, you can come here, and I know that for a fact this was shot on a Nikon, and I don't have the camera, the one that was used in here, but I'm gonna choose something very similar, which is this one here. So we have now the dimension of our film back, and then we can put these values here. So it was similar, but we're gonna put exactly the same. And now because they're linked, this camera and this card, they will have exactly the same focal length and lens in horizontal aperture. What this means is once you put this one here, once you read this through a scanline render, what you're gonna have in the 3D space, it's this, which doesn't look like much, and once you see this after the scanline render, you have a black image. And the reason is, at the moment, both the camera and the actual card are in the center of our world, so we cannot see anything for this reason. So we need to give some depth in this card in order for the camera to capture it. So because they're linked, we don't want to mess with the translational rotation and scale. We want to mess with the depth, but in the Z. And by doing so, you're going to see that the card, it's always in the frustum of our camera. So no matter how far you put this, it will always be in the frustum. And what this means is the image that you're going to have here, it's going to be exactly the same as your input. And now what we're going to do, the goal is, we need to take this card exactly the same, and we need to put the same thing on all of the images that we know in the 3D space. It's going to be around here on the left. We're going to move that image with the transform geo. Remember that we're not changing any values on the TRS of the card in any card, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to take the center of our world and the transform geo. In this case, the pivot is of course at 0, 0, 0, and so is the card. And we're going to rotate the card like that in order for us to have an overlap that makes sense. Now here we can take a look and we can try to roughly aim to the right position in any axis, and there will be probably cases in which we're going to have to move in more than just one axis, but this will not give you enough precision. So in order for you to have precision, we need to see this in a different kind of way. Not only because of that, but because of the actual map itself. So what we're gonna do is, we're gonna use this scanline render, and now you don't need to connect the camera, but you need to connect the scene, of course, because now what we're gonna see is everything through a spherical output. And this will give us, once we have this complete, this will become some sort of sphere, because we're going to put a card here, another one here, on the top, on the top. So if you have like the more images we're going to have, the more we're going to have the sphere filled with images. What this one is giving us is, out of that sphere, we're going to have sort of a UV kind of output. And this is going to be actually what we're going to then retexture back to a sphere, and that sphere is going to be captured, whatever it's inside that sphere, with the camera that we're going to have. Because the purpose of having an environmental map is we need to have a background that will fit, or that will be used on a bunch of shots, hopefully in the entire sequence, and whatever camera we put it inside, it will always capture the same thing. That's the goal of an environmental map. So an environmental map, it's a lat long map. Because it's a lat long, we need to reformat this to a lat long image, which is twice the width in comparison with the height. Either you pick one from here, 2K lat long, or you create another one. So you see that this value here, it's twice this one here. That's what makes a lat long. And now we're going to put this as our format. But you see that this image is really poor quality, right? So we can still maintain the relationship between the width and the height, but we need to ramp up this value quite a lot. And that's why a lot of these maps, it's like a 16K, 20K, 30K, because we need to have the maximum detail possible. So what we're going to do after this reformat is to drop another reformat. But in this case, we're gonna keep exactly what we have, but we're gonna scale what we have already. So if we put this to 2, we're gonna have twice the resolution. If we put this to 3, you can have 3 times the resolution. And the goal is you need to go up with this number as long as you have an improvement of the image. So you do whatever you need to do, but you don't need to scale to the maximum while you're doing this stitching here. Okay, so you put something that makes a bit more sense and it's detailed enough for what you're about to do, but you don't need to go to 10 if it's not required. I'm going to choose 3 for now, right? So now what we're going to do is like assembling a puzzle. We're going to have this card in every single image, and we're going to use transform geos. We're going to try just to rotate and not translate or scale it, all right? Because let's not forget, the assumption is these pictures were taken in a tripod. So in a tripod, you would shot your first image here, then you rotate it like that, always with the same pivot, then you do the same like this, and you do the same like that, and you do the same up and to the left in every single direction. So that's what we're going to mimic. We were trying to mimic how these pictures were taken in terms of direction, right? So I'm going to try now to identify features on the 2 images that we can match. Okay, so in this case, this tree, okay, this tree and this tree is the same tree, and this trunk is the same. So I'm gonna, normally what I do is I use the selection tool quite a lot, and this is one of the uses. It's just to mark something. So I'm gonna mark more or less this spot here, so I can match it with the rotation when I'm rotating this one here. Just rotate this, so that feature there will be placed in that spot that I've marked with my selection tool, like that. Okay, more or less like this. All right, so of course we're gonna have problems like this, like seams. We're gonna ignore this for now, and it's natural that we're gonna have seams because the angle was not exactly the same in all of the pictures, and the light conditions probably change as well, and maybe this was taken on automatic mode, so all the exposure and all that stuff got changed. Anyway, we're gonna deal with this later, but the first thing that we have to do now is to do exactly what I've just done for all of them. So now that I have all of them done, you can see that this is starting to become a sphere, right? And that sphere, the output of that sphere UV-wise, or we can face it like that, again, it's exactly the same that we have in here in this spherical mode. So this is our output out of this system here in our 3D space. In this one here, the result is going to be exactly what the camera is pointing at. If you have this imaginary sphere completely filled with pictures, we would have this completely filled as well. I've done this stitching, visually speaking, kind of in a hurry, just to explain the technique itself, but probably there are some of the tiles or some of the pictures that could have been better lined up. So sorry about that, but you know, this is just to explain the technique, and it's good for that purpose. Now, as I explained before, we have all these differences between the images in terms of exposure, colors, all of that stuff. So now we will have to identify one that we want to pick as our reference, and then we're going to match the others to that one best possible. And we're going to do that on the actual images themselves with some grades. So if I enable all these grades, you'll see that this will make more sense overall. It's not perfect, it's not meant to be perfect yet, but it makes more sense in comparison to what it was. And still we can see all the seams as well. Not great, but that's part of the process. So now what will be the goal? The goal is to use now this, let's call it UV map or texture, right? To then texture a sphere with it. So if I open a sphere, and then we're going to map this directly to a sphere, and as a starting point, we're going to use the same camera. I'm going to put this to default so it looks straight. And if I put now this on a scanline render, what we're going to see is the portion of that sphere in terms of what what's the purpose is you're gonna have just one of these that you're gonna feed to your team, and every single camera will be capturing whatever it's inside that, and everyone is going to use the same background for all the shots. So we do this for an entire sequence, for example. In this case, these are pictures, but this could have been portions of actual footage that will even become even more realistic. In this case, it's pictures, but it's exactly the same concept. Just to call your attention for something. When you're putting a texture directly into a geometry like this, Nuke textures this from the outside to the inside, which means that in order to have the correct orientation, after the spherical transform, you need to put a mirror to do it like this. So what we have to do next, we have to take care of those seams, but for you to do that, that's when you need to put this to the full quality, because the actual format is going to change. We're going to do that, and the goal is to, with the clone tool, we're going to take care of all these seams as much as we can. By the way, the reason why we need an alpha is because if you don't have an alpha, you're going to have transparency here, you see? So we need to have this full alpha, so we don't have transparencies like that at all. That's the only reason. So now that I did the paint to take care of the edges, let's see what we have. So again, this was done quickly, not aiming for perfection here, just to give you the example. Even though it was like done very quickly, it's much better than what it was, because we don't see like very obvious seams as we had before. So now we have this inside our sphere, and now we can capture. Anyway, hopefully we have enough images to, with all the cameras that we have available to us for this sequence, we have enough coverage, so all the cameras will capture a portion of that. You can then, I'm mimicking this camera as being animated, and this is the result that I have. Everything is stitched. We can move any way we like. Again, this was done quickly, so I can see already there's a weird angle here, so probably I would have to rotate this to the left a bit, this tile here, and these paint jobs are not very good, but it's about the technique. It's all about the technique. And this is how you do a environmental map. See you next week. So that was the first attempt on having something recorded or pre-recorded instead of having it live. But I don't want to discourage anyone if there's people that would like to have me do something live in Nuke. There's definitely a chance for that. So if not now, in the next episode, you already know. So if you would like to have your sorry about that. Can anyone confirm on the chat that everything is up and running at the moment? Because I'm getting images saying that something went wrong. Anyway, I hope that this was all right, but this went just fine with no much problem. But what I was about to say is, if you would like on the next episodes that if you'd like to have some specific subject that will be discussed live, or like a technique, good to know, thank you, or a specific technique that that you'd like me to explore, or any other doubts, whether it's compositing or scripting, whether it's TCL, scripting wise, TCL or Python or whatever, please connect directly with me on YouTube or send me a message, a private message. By the way, this project is available on all social media, at least the main ones. I'm talking about, of course, YouTube, which is the channel that we are at the moment. So please subscribe if it's something that you like and you would like to know, when the next one will be, or when the next one will be live. Please subscribe. There's also my channel that will be on the comments later on. If any of you have that channel, please post it on the comments so people can check it out. And the reason I'm saying this, it's those who know me know that I have a lot of tools, and the tools that I have might be something that can be used as base for you to ask me, oh, I did this or oh, I did that. So I'm an open book for you in this channel. At least let's try that as much as I can. So time now for our surprise and live guest. Let's go. How you doing, man?
All good. Am I live?
You are live.
Okay. Hi,
live,
Pedro. How are you?
Loud and clear to everyone. We were having a few issues bringing you in just now, sound and all that stuff, and it was me doing something, of course, that
I'm completely ignorant about how Skype works. I mean, I didn't use the software for like 2 years, so.
Yeah. Well, listen, if it wasn't for this, I wouldn't use it either, because, you know.
Yes, exactly.
This is a very 90s thing, and it was great at that time, but today there's so many other options, right?
Yes.
Like Zoom.
Thank you anyway, because at least today I'm doing something a bit different, and it breaks the routine, so this is very good.
Cool.
So, yeah, and funny.
By the way, just so everyone know, let me bring us two now into the channel, so people now will see us both. Okay. I've met Mickey around, when was it? Maybe 3 years ago already? 2 and something years ago now. Time flies, man.
It cannot be 3, but let's say 2.
I would say 2 at least, yeah. So we joined, well, we met together because of Avengers. Basically, that's what happened. Well, it turned out to be Avengers. It could have been something different, right? That's when I joined the same company that you were in, and we worked on that amazing show called Avengers. That a lot of people, I knew that you wanted to make that face, and that's actually my first question, which is, what's the best memories you have of that show?
Avengers. Oh, yeah. Damn it. I don't know. It's difficult to phrase. I like the teamwork. I don't have specific memory related to specific shows, unless a couple of very bad ones that we've done in the past. So yeah, and I cannot even say. Usually, I love bad movies, and that one was a good movie, so I cannot even say that. So the thing that usually I remember as the best thing. Always.
Wait. You said bad movies or Bond movies?
Bad
movie. Ah, you like bad movies?
Oh, nice. Yeah. The worse the better. Yes, absolutely. That's fun.
Cool.
There's a thin line, but yes.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I guess. Bad movies, and as in like cinematography wise, and what do you mean by bad movies? Like story wise, or?
Usually story wise, not visual.
Yeah,
story wise. Or it's like concept-wise, script-wise stuff. There's like, really, how can you come up with this?
Listen, but if that's the case, I think we're in the right path, because a lot of stories and all that stuff in the films that we work on, the majority of the times, they're not very good, but they're cool to work on, right?
Yes. Let's say that without breaking the charm and allure that there is behind our job. I don't watch many of the movies that I worked on, so yeah.
Well, I tried to watch them all, even though a lot of them probably I'm not a fan, or some of them I'm not a fan of. But it's good to see our work there. At least after so many months and so many sweats, in some tears, sometimes in some blood, some other times. It's good to see at least something that it's there. And it's ready, and it's over, and that's what I was about to say. If I may say, what's the best memories I have from a show like Avengers? It's probably the fact that it's over, or it was over.
Oh yeah, that's always the case. Always the case.
That's always the case, right? But you were saying just now that you keep a lot of memories of other projects that you worked on, especially the team effort and all that stuff.
It's more about the people, not the project itself.
Yeah,
so
but do you want to expand? Do you want to expand on that? Like, as in, like, do you have a special memory of a special show or a specific show?
And not specifically. I think I always been lucky that I worked within very good teams, and after all these years in the industry, definitely the part that I like the most is working with people. Not specifically work on a project or a specific shot or a specific technology is the people, is the fact that our job is a team effort, is the best part of it.
Yeah.
So that's
with all the challenges at the same time, right?
Absolutely is, yes. Yeah. Managing people is difficult, and working in team is difficult. Working with people is difficult overall, but that's absolutely the most satisfaction you can have in this job, I believe, is with people and not actually the final result you have on the screen.
Yeah, totally agree with you. Totally,
and that's a very personal thing, because
yeah, I think we are in that regard. I think after working with each other for a while, and after we know each other for these past couple of years, I think we share that between us two, and I think we have, in some aspects, in a lot of aspects, as supervisors, we have the same kind of approach, especially with people. You have something that I'll be honest, and I already told you this, so this is not anything new. I admire your practicality to things.
Okay.
A lot of people tend to, especially supervisors and leads, and I think that has to do, I don't know your opinion, it would be good to hear your take on that, but I think a lot of times might be, of course, personality comes across in everything you do, but also maybe, confidence, self-confidence on what you're doing and what's the actual goal here, right?
Yeah.
Some people, they seem like they miss the target a bit in terms of what we are actually doing here and what's the actual importance of what we're doing, right?
This is a very complex subject, but let's say confidence-wise is something that you gain with the years, and like also relating with people is something that you need to develop, and it takes a lot of time. So and the practicality of it is another aspect. So, for example, my goal is, as everybody knows me already is to work the least amount as possible and have the client satisfied enough, and the people not burned by too much work.
Yeah.
So that's my goal as supervisor, is just to make the team work the least amount to get the bare minimum result where the client is happy. It's like, okay, if the client is happy, that's it. It's okay.
Yeah, because that's the goal, isn't it? Our goal, our job is to deliver something on time and with the quality. Well, the bare minimum, I would say, quality-wise, it's of course what the client wants, right? Anything above that.
Sometimes there is stuff that not even my judgment will digest, but often is like, okay, that's even bad for my standard, but it's not that good. It's not good or bad. It is like, that's what we are paid to do, and we have to remember that this is a job that personal passion, and that's the double-edged sword, in the sense that fights everything because just they like to do what we're doing.
Yeah.
But we
sometimes
have to remember,
literally everything, right?
Yes, but we have to remember what we are professional. Professional means that somebody pay you to do something. So if you're a professional photographer, means somebody thing. It's not that you're good or not, or you're an artist. So there is a lot of art in what we're doing, but we have to remember that day by day is still a job. So let's check the bigger picture. Let's try to
and it's a job without taking again the the importance of what we do, but it's it's a relative importance, isn't it, in terms of if you compare with firefighters, if you compare with doctors.
But that's
you know what I mean?
Almost everything.
And a lot of people, they seem to miss the mark in terms of, all right, what we do is important. We're going to do the best we can. We're going to do the best we can creatively and artistically and technically even. We're going to put optimization processes as long as much as we can, but also as long as it makes sense for what's the purpose of our job.
Yes,
right?
we need to remember that just let's care about the people and then about the project, not vice versa.
Exactly. So, and I think that's actually sums up like probably one of the, I would say, one of the most important things, or one of the most most important problems that our industry have, and there's many reasons for that. But I think people not caring, about the people as people deserve in every. I'm not talking about you know, whether I'm talking about everyone basically, whether you're in production, whether you're an artist, whether you're a supervisor, whether, you know, and that start at the actual level on how the business is done. And, you know, all of that plays a role, and all of that will be translated downwards. In, you know, if we're in the pyramid, you know, if someone decides something at the top, of course that will be translated to the ones at the bottom, right?
Yeah, but every company is a bit different. Every company has a own philosophy and work ethic and whatever. But I mean, as long we have fun in doing what we do, and
that's the most important.
Happy, that's the goal. And we're very lucky to do this kind of job. That we are really lucky to do something we like.
Definitely, definitely. Speaking of which, and speaking of all of these challenges, especially these days with all this pandemic and all that stuff, how are you feeling in terms of you know, advantages or disadvantages of, you know, having your team, because that's literally what's happening, right? Having our teams working remotely. I can see some advantages. I felt some advantages. I felt some disadvantages as well. But I would like to hear your take on that.
Real advantages, I would say not a single one.
Okay.
Okay, I think now we are in the middle of a project, so we are delivering a few episodes for a Netflix show, so we have a lot to do. And again, we are lucky that in this specific moment we had this amount of work to do. The lucky situation was that the team and the project already started before the lockdown. So we already knew each other, and there was already some link established between the team, and that's why it's working fine. I don't see a single advantage, because working with people face to face is just much more efficient, more effective, and much quicker. And actually spending all day long chatting and on the phone, it's extremely difficult to keep the same pace and the same intensity. So it's challenging at that point of view.
But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
The good thing that this specific case, the fact that now we can work remotely, will open a huge door in our industry. Because literally just 2 months ago, you couldn't even think
about
sharing an email with a friend on a telephone. Because like, no, that's forbidden, and the privacy and the secrecy and all this stuff. Now everybody's working from home, and there was a big shift from the client saying, no, we can't, to, of course, we have to. And I think in the future that's great, because actually it is a paradigm shift. It's like, okay, now this could be done. You can work in a different way. You can work remotely. You can work with people in other countries.
Yeah, it turns out there's no problem because of that, right?
Absolutely. I mean, what we're proving now, and that's why I think despite the crisis, is a good chance, and that we need to take advantage of. If this is successful, will open so many possibilities for the industry that are just countless, and the benefit would be immense.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
From strictly speaking about money from the companies, but also for the artists and people with families and people that want to live in other countries, or for efficiency, you can work
both of us. We're not from this country, right? We came to this country many years ago, but we're not from here, as everybody can tell by our accents, by the way. There's nothing new here, right?
Yeah. But I mean, you can do so much more. You can work around the clock if you need to deliver something at a fraction of the cost. So looking forward, I think you can extract a lot of good stuff from what's happening now. So Definitely. It will take time to get a full shift, but that would be good.
Yeah, I would say, and I think I said this last week. Of course, last week was still in Portuguese. This is the first in English. Let me remind everyone. But I think there will be a time in the beginning of, you know, after all of this. We'll see what all of this is over. That's what I was about to say. We'll see, you know. I don't think that will happen like that, like all of this is over. I think it will come, of course, in waves.
1 year, 2 years. But I think it would be a waste if this methodology will not implemented in the work.
But that's what I was about to say. I think there will be some resistance, if not from the artists. Of course, the artists will be totally on board with this idea of working remotely. But I think there will be some resistance from companies, from the studios, from all that stuff. But I don't think they have, you know, they stand a chance, because this door was because it's already open. There's no way.
And for the companies, it would be very easy if you force them to count the money they could save.
Oh yeah, that's a very easy calculation.
100%.
And I said that last week as well, or 2 weeks ago, which is just in real estate alone, it's a huge amount of money that they save.
A few millions here and there, yes.
You know what I mean? So I think this is definitely here to stay. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
I prefer this to work in the office. No, it's not the point. The point that we can have the option to decide, depending on the project, the team, a few things, that you can do this, is feasible and is working.
And it's secure. I mean, turns out it's secure. That part of
so far
problematic, so like of course, we're in the beginning of the process. Yeah. But I never really understood that. That concept that companies and probably studios would say, no, you cannot do that especially because of the security reasons and because of secrecy and spoiling and all that stuff.
But if you want to you can take a picture of your screen in the
exactly. Yeah, everyone can do that. I mean, it's not because it doesn't make any sense. Plus, there are other industries. Yes, our industry, there's a lot of cash flow because of our industry. We know that. We all know that. But there are other industries that they need really much more to think about those problems a bit more seriously than our industry. For example, banking, and they can do that still. So why can't we? You know what I mean? So I think that was like
especially. We are in 2020. The technology is good enough. When I was started, internet was almost not everybody had internet.
Yeah, I remember those days, man.
Just downloading a picture was painful.
Oh yeah.
But now we have the technology to do this. So it's like, why not? So we have no excuses, basically. And it's a bit sad. Actually, we needed this kind of crisis to push the industry towards this mentality. So let's see.
And also something like this, as you said, we have the technology already, but even if we didn't, to a point that we could have this, like with this, wide secure connections like we have and all that stuff, but we do, right? But also the fact that we have this happening at the moment, the working from home in our industry, of course this will push other industries, even things that we don't know, to come up with solutions for this remote work. Because let's not forget, we're not the only industry in which this is happening. This is happening in every single industry. And of course there will be more concerns because of several reasons. I said a few weeks ago that fraud attempt and all that stuff through the internet, through phones and all that stuff went up like in a big spike. And we know that situations like this tend to have problems that otherwise wouldn't be such a problem. But all of that will combine, will motivate other industries to come up with better and new solutions about even things that we don't even know about these days.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So
it's a matter of time, and it will end soon. Let's just wait. Hopefully that this summer we can go to the pub and drink together. It's like,
man, I miss that. I miss that a lot, I have to say. Being with people or not be able to be with people is definitely something that it's the worst, I guess. Let's now open this to the chat. See if there's any things that people would like to ask you or ask me, or just say good or bad things about the show. That would be also good. There's not much things going on. I would ask you, and that's I think my final question, at least for now. If you want to talk about your mix, and I would say odd love between your cameras, old cameras, photography, and the other part, machinery-wise, that I'll let you speak about that by yourself.
What do you mean by machinery?
Guns, weaponry of all sorts, and
okay. Let's speak with the worst one first. Guns and weapons and mechanical stuff in general. Since I was a kid, I was obsessed with disassembling stuff, and just had big passion for anything mechanical. And when I discovered that you get things that can shoot and hit a target, it's like, oh, this is a mechanical device, and you can even shoot to a target. That's why I get into that. It was a mechanical interest at the beginning, completely unrelated, but that's still a hobby.
Well, it's kind of related because disassembling and assembling things is also part of what we do, isn't it?
Especially disassembling. Yeah, and photography. Well, I've always been a very visual person, and my parents always say that I learn how to draw before how to speak, and I can definitely, yes, absolutely.
Wow.
So photography for me was always draw, and photography was just a next visual language that was easy to me. And so clearly, when I was a kid, I was using film, and then when I had my first job and I had enough money to buy a digital camera, it was just a big revolution. Just that you can plug and grade your images was like insane. But then after 10 years of digital photography, I was just bored. It was like, okay, this is nonsensical. And I went back to film. And I started again with 35 millimeters. And then in the progression, it's like, I need something bigger. I got a medium format. And it's like, I want something bigger. I want a large format camera. And then I say, I want something bigger. Start to be a bit too expensive. Let's build one. And so I went into this very long tunnel of photography technique from the 18th century as well. And I built my own cameras. I built my own lenses.
Oh my God, I didn't know that. Really?
I mixed my own chemicals, buying the silver nitrate from chemical shops and doing my own emulsion on paper to print with 18th century technology. And just a very interesting process. Yes, and all the chemical process that you do in a darkroom and processing of black and white, positive film, Super 8 movies. I've done a lot of these chemical and old optical things. And actually, I would say a very good, complete, coherent vision of what the photography is.
I was about to ask you that, like, if that helped in any way. Of course, it's almost like an obvious question.
Yes, absolutely, and especially if you go back to this old technique and shooting with film cameras that have nothing, and maybe not even a shutter, and you have to open the cap and close it to make an exposure. You actually understand light, and you understand exposure. You understand that what you see is not what the film or the sensor gets. And this will help massively when you have to create something that looks okay. I mean, if something looks good through a camera, it's not what you see in real life. And understanding how a camera works and exposure and all this stuff.
Yeah, it's fundamental, of course. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I'll be honest. I don't have that same love for photography as you do. I have other things that I'm more interested in. But of course, it's very, very important. And my take, because let's face it, whether you're a supervisor or an artist or whatever, even if you work in compositing, which is of course very related with photography, you don't need to know all of that things like back and forth.
Absolutely.
You need to know at least the basics, right? But it's also a very good thing if you have a camera, and there's cheap cameras that you can buy, and if for not for anything else, I think it's always a good investment because you can study, and I've done this many times. Like if I have a doubt in terms of the physicality of some things that I'm trying to mimic in our job, you try yourself, and see. For example, one of the things that I can tell, and maybe this is like a challenge for everyone, is to find out whether or not lens flare have motion blur.
Ah, damn it. Come on. It doesn't.
Well, I'm not going to say the answer. I'm not going to say the answer. Okay. It's going to be for everyone to try, I guess. But speaking of regarding all this stuff, people are saying that you should do a workshop.
I thought about it. I thought about a workshop specifically. Okay, if you have to do a workshop, I don't want to do like, digital photography. I don't know nothing. My newest digital camera is from 2006.
No, I think people are really referring to the old school.
Yes. So if I will do something, I was planning to do 8th century photography workshop. Printing on paper, taking picture on photographic paper, and how to build a camera, how lenses work, all this stuff. And actually, you can do this with £20 from eBay and a couple of boxes. So there's many ways to play with this stuff. Yeah, that would be.
I think that would be a cool idea, actually, man. Think about it.
Yeah. After the pandemic, when you can gather people again.
During the pandemic. That's where what people are asking. During the pandemic.
Oh, damn it! But actually, my thing was, I like people. You have to stay in the same room, and how can I teach you something that needs physicality without being there? That's difficult.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah,
very difficult.
Well, but there are some things you can do. Think about it. Think about it. Yeah, promise
okay,
to everyone that is watching this now or later that you're gonna, at least, think about it.
That would be. I can think how to re-engineer a workshop designed for a darkroom by an internet. It's difficult.
Yeah. Well, listen. What about old school compositing? Have you ever come across with an optical printer or something like that?
No, and God save us from that, because don't do that stuff. I mean,
can you imagine? I can't.
Thanks for digital compositing.
Yeah.
No, actually, the technique I use in real life compositing that I'm doing still today is stuff that is 20 years old. So.
What, you mean the techniques?
Oh yeah, the techniques I use in digital compositing, I do nothing differently from what has been done 20 years ago.
Yeah, and
so keep it simple.
Yeah, I mean, I always say very often that simple is good. So if you can make something that is very simple, and actually, because it's simple, you have better chances on know exactly how to explain that to somebody else, especially as a supervisor, because it's simple, right? And we all know, and we share this, I think, between you and me, I think we think alike regarding that stuff. And we also think alike on the opposite, as in a lot of people complicate a lot of simple things.
And I think there is a big misconception that our job is super technical. It is very technical, but good technique doesn't mean complex technique. And there is a lot of stuff online and tutorials and how to do things that are a bit misleading because they overcomplicate stuff at an unnecessary level. And technology doesn't help, because now you can do so much more, but often you don't need all the stuff. So
yeah, normally my take on that is, because sometimes, as you said, sometimes the technique should be always very simple, and simple to the point that you can easily explain. Well, first of all, understand it to yourself, and then later on explain to other people, especially if you're a supervisor, because that's what you have to do at some point, right? Or come up with a very simple system that is optimized, is not gonna drag your machine in terms of processing and all that stuff. Sometimes you don't have an option, but as much as you can, I think we should speak or think about things in that way. And a lot of times what I do is, if I didn't have a computer and I would like to do something like this, even if it's not possible because I just have one camera, for example, right? How would I do that? And that helps me a lot on how to think about about things in real terms, like what is it really a projection? What would be the effect of a projection if I would have, for example, a card moving towards the projector or the camera or whatever? We can see that live, of course, and that's a very simple example and concept. But I try to do that for everything as much as I can, even on the very complex things. I try to make it like to deconstruct to a point that anybody, well, first of all me, of course, but anybody could be potentially understand a very complex kind of concept.
Yes, absolutely.
And part of that article that I don't know if you know this, but I wrote an article about it too. Probably we talked about this, but I can send it after this. The reason why it's a complex kind of solution to basically do projections. That's the core of it. Do projections without geometry, basically, and just take the position pass as our thing to do that job. The concept, of course, it's a technical issue, but I tried to break it down in very simple terms, and I wrote an article about it not because of anything else, but because I wouldn't forget that to myself. First of all.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
First of
Write
all,
it down. Yes.
First of all, and then of course I share this with other people. But that's I give this example all the time. First of all, because it seems like it's something very complicated, and of course it has that the technicality about it. I'm not gonna lie.
Absolutely. Like, but I understand photography because I built a camera and a lens and the aperture and the shutter. It's like, okay, now I know exactly.
You break it down as much as you can.
Yes, and you bump into the problem like, okay, now how can I solve this? And now I understand the entire thing. It is the same concept, basically.
It's the same thing, exactly. Same thing. Cool, man. I think we're gonna wrap up this unless anyone has any other suggestions. We already have a suggestion here, which was the workshop. So you promised to think about it.
Okay.
You did. I didn't. All right. You were the one, saying yes. I'm going to speak about it.
About it. Yes,
yes. So if everyone, if no one else has any other questions, I cannot see anything here, as in new things. We're going to wrap up this, and we're going to see each other next week. Thanks again to Mickey for showing up. Great to see you again. Thank you very much. People are saying. Lovely talk. Look at you.
We will see you. I hope to see you next time live. Not.
I know, man. I know. At the pub, hopefully, right? Or at least outside, like 4 walls, right?
Yeah.
All right, man. Listen, once again, thank you, and bye-bye, everyone. See you next time, next week. I'll be posting during these next days when we're gonna have the next one, but it's gonna be next week. All right, bye bye.
Thank you.
See you. Bye bye.
Goodbye.